That's why I put here. All right. Are we here? We're here. Let's go to work. Good morning, commissioners. Are we ready to go, Aaron? I'm not loud. I'm not. Good morning. I'm not in the speaker, Aaron.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Are we hearing me yet, Aaron? I will use my outdoor voice. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes for limited public comment.
Good morning. My name is Patty Rail. I am with the Village of Middleville, and I'd like to thank you for your consideration for nominating me, or of my nomination to the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. Thank you very much.
Any other limited public comment this morning? Yes, please.
All right. I've got Cowpop tickets for the Delton Rotary. Those of you who don't know what a Cowpop is, they put squares out on a soccer field, and they put a cow on out there, and the cow does the thing on each square. You get a portion of the money here, it's a fundraiser for the Delton Rotary. So, these two are all right. Thank you.
Any other public comment this morning? All righty, let's get to work. Our first item on the agenda this morning is the interview of William Sweeney for the solid waste industry position on the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. Mr. Sweeney, are you here? Yes, ma'am. Okay. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
If he can reschedule, I don't know what was the problem today, but if he can reschedule, that'd be okay with me.
Any other? Let's work on rescheduling for a future meeting. Thanks, Luella. All right, next on our agenda, Mr. Vandemark. Let me see if I can find it.
Moving right along.
Okay. I do not see Dan either. Let's work on the equalization request. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners. Oh, that's not the right one. So, Mr. Vandemark wanted to increase his part-time staff member from part-time to full-time. This was a request last year, I believe, and we denied it. And he is again requesting due to the workload in his department. Is that a fair summation, Michael?
That's correct.
I'm not sure what the funding difference is. I'm hearing myself, so I can quit shouting.
Is in the estimated cost, it says $15,906.
Plus an additional $4,700 for benefits.
Right.
Discussion. We did. We approved that contract a couple of weeks ago. But I think moving forward, they're still going to have issues in the county. I mean, our county's growing. We have a lot more properties and stuff to keep track of. I don't know exactly what this position was in the past.
Well, last year when he wanted to have that for 25 hours, which isn't what he's asking for now, up to from 19 hours to 25.
Yep.
So we went ahead with the 19 just because people were calling and no one was answering the phone and was in there. But they also have had the other where they rearranged their with IT because of Rose leaving and
Right.
stuff. So, and it is a mandated office. I mean, it has to be there.
It
So-
is just a increase of 6 hours per week, so it's not even going full-time to part-time. It's going 47% to 63%.
But it raises it from part-time, no fringes to 4,700 in fringes, right?
Right.
So is it just the increase of the 4,700? Is that the increase then?
Michael, the estimated cost is at 15,000 plus 4,000 to be about 20,000 or 21,000. Oh, the 15 includes it, so it would
Oh.
just be an increase of 15.9.
Well, in my time here, we've never approved a budget appeal for additional staff resources without first appealing the bid.
Well, I think he meant to be here, but Michael said he's not getting
Right.
better as fast as he thought he would be.
However, we can pass an amended budget in the future.
And it is a mandated office.
Correct.
Are they saying that the office is not manned then?
I'm not saying that it's not manned. I'm just saying that last year they said that sometimes the phones weren't being answered and they had trouble covering. So I don't know that. I just went by what was last year.
So
The budget has to be approved by the end of this month, or the end of next month.
The end of this month.
End of this month, that's what I,
And next week is supposed to
Is
be
our
our
last.
budget
yep, our budget hearing, okay.
hearing. So, what are the chances that Mr. Vandermark will feel better by next week or the week after? Do we know? So would you like to put this on items for consideration next week, Dan?
Can we call him? Put him on the phone, speakerphone?
Next week or this week?
Today?
If he's in pain or something, I don't wanna call him.
Yeah, I don't want to call him if he's at
Feeling
home.
well.
That's his time.
Well, we can call first and ask how he's doing, and then suggest if it's not today, could we do it next week?
I wouldn't object to having this on items for consideration next week versus consent. And that way he has the ability to present his side.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. But I don't think we can have the technology set up.
Yeah, it's a
I
trick
got a
and a
cell
half.
phone here that we could
Yeah,
probably.
but it's a trick and a half, Dan, to get it to feed
All
through
right,
so that we
all
can
right.
hear all the conversation.
I hate kicking cans down the road.
I get it. Is there a motion to move it to next week for items for consideration?
Mhm.
Second,
Moved by Gibson, support by Connor to put this on next week for items for consideration to hear from Mr. Vandermark. Thank you. Now he's here. Come on up, Dan.
We need to vote on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. So, Dan Patton is here today with a report from Parks and Rec.
The mics
Actually,
aren't
it's a
working,
budget
Dan.
appeal.
My turn working, figure out.
That's okay, I'll use my coaching voice, how about that? I think in your packet, I don't know what you've seen, what you've not seen. But in the packet, I did provide just a one-page summary kind of outlining what we are looking at in terms of the proposal. Our general fund request was for $89,500 for the fiscal year 2021. As you look at that, it's $12,673 over what was recommended by administration. And it is an increase over what we received last year. I don't know entirely how the budget process went down last year for Parks and Rec, but apparently at some point in time there was an indication that they made an appeal to the county commissioners to fund the one part-time position with an additional $7,000. That was not agreed upon by last year's board, and my understanding is the Parks and Rec board decided at that time they would just use fund balance. I'm trying to move us away from using fund balance to pay for these part-time positions. We need those dollars down the road for grant matching processes, and without them, then we're right back here every time requesting funds. So the total amount we're requesting, in addition to the $76,800, is $12,673. That does two things. Number one, it gives us a seasonal part-time position, or whatever you want to call it. We're looking at that position working primarily from mid-May through mid-September. The question was posed to me yesterday, is it 40 hours a week? Yes and no. If you calculate it out on a 12-week average, it's about 43 hours a week. That's running June 1st through August 30th. We're actually proposing less than 40 a week, running it sometime in May through sometime in September. It is a seasonal position. Inherently gives us some boots on the ground throughout the park system. primarily on the trails in McEwen Bridge Park. And if anybody knows anything about parks this summer, it's been crazy. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I have never seen the amount of use that all parks, not just us, all parks across the system are seeing. And in reality, people are trying to escape COVID, let's be honest. And one place to do that is parks. And we're trying to make sure our facilities are clean, secure, and safe. And one of the ways to do that is to have seasonal staff in place, and that's why we have the request.
Any questions for Dan?
How much are you asking for?
The total's 12,000. For the seasonal position, it's about 5,600. I probably have it somewhere.
So total 12,000.
It was about 12,700, roughly.
12,673.
$12,673.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't we increase your, is it Ron that does your administrator?
Say it again,
Is
louder.
I'm sorry, isn't Ron your administrator?
For the,
No, not anymore.
Or he was?
He's a park commission.
Who's
we're-
your administrator then?
Dan Patton.
now,
We combine those together, and Ron is now a worker there, and he also is, I would guess, a mentor and also
But
an assistant. in a way.
Didn't we last year increase the wages for him because he spent so many time boots on the ground, on the trails, doing all that stuff? Didn't we do that last year?
Yep.
So
Yep.
he's not getting paid now, right?
No, so Ron is now currently in a position where he's working 18.5 hours a week over the entire year. We utilize him for, I'd like to be able to utilize him for some other things other than cleaning bathrooms and picking up trash. Yes, he is making substantially more than what we're looking to pay in terms of a seasonal position. But his is a year-round part-time position at 18 and a half hours a week. What the additional we're proposing is for a seasonal part-time position that's going to run approximately mid-May through mid-September. So yes, in essence, we would have two part-time folks, one a year-round part-time person, the other a seasonal part-time person.
But wasn't the money that we raised his wages to, wasn't it because he spent so much time doing these things on the trails
That needed to be done.
that needed
yes.
to be done?
And he was doing it mostly free.
He was doing it free, but
Yeah.
we increased it so he would get paid for doing those things
Right,
on the trail.
Right.
And now
it's-
you still need someone else to do those things on the trail also?
I can tell you because of COVID, there has been a whole lot more bathroom cleaning, tabletop cleaning, organizing stuff down there that the already seasonal guys that have cut grass can't handle. There's so much stuff across the parks that have to be cleaned. There are parks all over that closed their playground equipment because you couldn't clean them often enough. There wasn't staff to do it. And I think Dan's group has done an awesome job. I've been out there several times this summer for meetings and stuff. I can see needing another person moving forward.
I'm just raising my voice so you can hear me. I'm not raising my voice because I'm mad.
No,
But we did increase
Right.
Ron's salary last year for what he was doing because he was very grossly underpaid for his skill
That's what
what he was doing.
Well, that's what I
This is an
remembered.
additional person besides him.
If it's any consolation, he's still working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what more to say other than he works beyond the hours we're paying him for. Now,
I was just trying to remember what we increased last
absolutely.
year.
And that's I think there were two things that transpired last year. One, there was an additional pay, and the second, there were additional hours that moved him to 18.5. It works out it's 0.4 something of an employee. I don't know what the exact
Or
0.4
7 or
is.
You have to
something.
remember that the budget adjustment happened before we went to the Parks and Rec commission structure,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
So Ron's role at that time was administrative and also maintenance.
Correct.
So now
I understand that, but the money is still in the same line items that they were last year. Correct?
I don't know the answer.
Sure. I don't have that budget in front of me, honestly, but I would assume, yeah, we're talking about wages here. They're all in the same line item, in terms of that cost center, correct?
I'm going to say Ron is a new position for your oversight because he was in Parks and Rec before, but this is a completely different position than him, correct?
This would be an entirely
Right.
new position, a seasonal part-time position, and I hate that we're continuing to talk about Charlton Park versus Parks and Rec. We're all the Parks Commission, so the reality of it is it's all one agency. Yes, there are different cost centers, different funding mechanisms, but the reality of it is, yes, it's requesting another seasonal part-time position to work in parks.
Dan?
The new position also, the seasonal position, makes things more efficient because of the fact that sometimes it's a two-man job to get something done. And you either have to hire somebody again somewhere. We're talking about $10 an hour that this person's getting. And you had fringe benefits. What is the fringe benefits?
Paying our obligation of Social Security.
So that's the fringe benefits.
Oh, and I guess there is unemployment. So, yeah, I mean, the fringe benefits works out to about $600 for the year. And
Commissioner Smelker?
Now, on that, if they work so many hours in a pay period or something, I believe they have to have MERS, don't they?
so yes, part of the benefits package would kick in. However, seasonal, notice I keep going back to seasonal because there are limitations within the Affordable Care Act and with how government positions are viewed if they're considered a seasonal position, and that's what this would be. We're talking about someone who is either retired or a college age student that wants to make $10 an hour and work outside, and oh, by the way, doesn't mind cleaning bathrooms and picking up trash. But my understanding on the seasonal position review from both the federal and the state guidelines is that we don't have to worry about the retirement piece, that we don't have to worry about the health insurance piece. So our benefits would only be, honestly, the Social Security part, the unemployment piece, and it seems like there's one more that I don't remember.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Geiger?
We are a Parks and Rec, a recreation destination here in Berry County, and our parks are a point of pride. We need to make sure that they're clean and safe. If we're not willing to make that step and that investment, I don't think we are worthy of saying we're a recreation destination. So, this is a fundamental issue of making sure our parks are clean. So I don't have any issue.
I agree with Ben.
I would like, on your concerns and pressure sheet that you had on here, you're anticipating a reduction in revenue on your school events again next year, when we don't really know where that is even yet, do you?
That's under the Charlton Park budgeting side of it. If you look on that sheet, I broke it out between the cost center 250 and 251. But yeah, that's we're anticipating that schools will not return to a normal operation in terms of doing field trips and other things probably until 2022. What we're working on currently is a virtual program. We rolled it out to a couple of the in-county schools just to get some feedback from the teachers. And we're hoping to continue to work on that program and see how that works moving into the future. But I don't know when things for school districts get back to normal, which is certainly going to have a negative impact on us.
But you don't, but for some reason, you don't think it might, next May, when they're doing, April and May, when they're doing their trips, you don't think,
I do not.
for some reason, just,
There
I
are still
do
many
not.
students that are virtual learning. They're not even in a classroom. my school district has over, not my school, but my school district has over 200 kids that are virtually learning, while there's another 400 that are in a classroom because parents just don't want to send them, or they have health issues that they're at risk. So I don't see this changing much before this time next year.
The other piece that I'm getting in terms of discussion with superintendents and school board members is that they're not going to permit field trips to even happen. So part of this is we're bumping up against what the policy is going to be in place for individual school districts. Not all, but certainly we do believe that's going to impact us into 2021 for sure. I'd like to say it's all going to go away November 4th, because that's where I hear, but I don't think I can say that.
Well, I just had to ask because I wondered about that. And I don't know about 250. I just saw the one, it said cost center 208 and then down reduction in 208. So,
Yeah, 208 is the Charlton Park cost center.
okay.
We're hopeful events get back up to
Pretty soon.
back to
Pretty
normal
quick.
too. I just don't know. Much like everybody else sitting in this room, nobody really knows the answer to anything right now.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the request.
Second?
Moved by Gibson, support by Smelker to approve the budget appeal from Parks and Recreation. Any further discussion? Or any discussion?
One question.
Sir?
Dan, you're asking for $12,673. The part-time position is $5,650.
Correct.
What's the balance? What are we using the balance for?
The 7,000 is the additional that the Parks and Recreation Board was using out of fund balance to pay for Ron's position.
I thought it was for,
Didn't we pay for Ron's position last year?
Part of it. You didn't fully fund it last year. You required the Parks and Rec Board to take the additional 7,000 from their fund balance.
can I add to your question?
Yes.
So is that 7,000 Ron taking care of the erosion, brush removal, et cetera, in the Paul Henry Trail? Is
That's
that-
part of it, yeah.
That's what,
Yeah,
that's what it
that's-
says here in your
absolutely.
letter.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are there a zillion other things that Ron's probably gonna do? Yeah, there is. But that's certainly a piece of it. We can lump in removing 75 tires. We can getting
At
in a
$3 a
canoe and
piece.
cutting trees out of the waterway.
Scraping
There's a
paint.
laundry list of things that can be added to that. Those just happen to be the three that came to mind when I was writing paper.
Before he cuts any trees, have him check with the DEQ.
Yeah. Well, they were actually against our fishing dock up on Thornapple River there.
Okay.
I haven't feed any swine.
Right. Right.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
As Commissioner Geiger stated, that we can always amend the budget, but I am not prepared because it's not that I don't like parks, because I do, but right now, I'm not prepared to do this until we know what's going to happen with the jail millage, because that is something that is critical. So I'm not prepared to vote yes on this today until after the November election. I just can't. I got to see what's going to happen with the jail.
I think those are apples and oranges. I respect their opinion. People today want to go outside and they want to enjoy Berry County's natural resources. We need to make sure that the places they visit are clean. People like to attend parks, but they don't like to attend dirty parks. And the volunteers that we rely on to clean the parks traditionally, the world has changed for them. Having a volunteer cleanup day in the world of the pandemic is not something that is going to fly. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to make more investment, but all Berry County citizens benefit from the park.
I would indicate there, if you look in that last sentence, we're currently funding Parks and Rec at about 0.48% of an entire general fund budget of $17-18 million. 0.48. So we're not even we're not even requesting a 0.5%. I'm pretty sure that half of the percentage of the population of Berry County is interested in having safe, friendly, open public park system, and I think we're trying to do that. The other opportunity you could look, if you don't want to fund the position for parks, would be to eliminate the $15,000 that we're currently giving out to the local municipalities, which seems to be a very popular grant program. But honestly, that's $15,000 that Berry County Parks and Recreation Commission could use. So if the concern is additional funding, one of the ways to eliminate that would be to eliminate the funding that we're currently disseminating to the local units of government. Just a thought. So
Isn't up to us, that's up to the Parks and Rec Board, right? On them grants?
Well, that's coming out of our, And so, there's an economic portion of this too for the county. If people have a good experience in Berry County where they're clean parks and historic villages that they've got here, they'll tell other people about it. They'll come and spend money here.
Well, there's other places around the county that has been closed. People can't go to them. Movie theaters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they're going to parks. As far as the courts, didn't we have to hire another person to clean there? Am I not right there?
We did increase a
Yeah.
part-time person to
So I don't
full-time.
see why we wouldn't hire someone to clean our parks.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to approve the Parks and Recreation budget appeal.
Roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am.
You mean to move it forward to the
To
board?
move it forward to the Board of Commissioners for next week.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes, the item is approved. We'll see you again next week, sir.
Absolutely. If you have any questions on any of it, please reach out to me. Happy to talk to you.
All righty.
I take my frustrations out on Dan.
Next on our agenda is for the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached 2020 L4029 form, L4029, for Berry County to collect winter taxes and authorize the chairperson to sign. Sorry, I stumbled over that. Moved by Jackson, support by Gibson. Mr. Vandermark isn't here, but this is a standard form that we file for all taxes. You have any questions? Any discussion?
Motion. Oh,
We already got a motion. Hey, we're worth $2.2 billion. Doesn't that feel good? Any questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached 2020 L4029 form for the Berry County to collect winter taxes and authorize the chairperson to sign.
So moved.
I already did that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It is approved. All right. Solid Waste Oversight Appointments and Reappointments. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Patricia Rail to serve in a position representing the village representative, to reappoint Thomas Rook to serve in the position representing the township supervisors, to reappoint Jay Van Stee to serve in the position representing the Berry Eaton District Health Department, to reappoint Sarah Nelson and Jim Brown to serve in the general public positions on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee for 3-year terms that begin on November 1st, 2020 and expire on October 31st, 2023, and to confirm the appointment of Frank Fiala for the year 2021 as recommended by David Solms, Chair of the Road Commission.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Gibson, second by Connor. Questions, discussion?
I take it these all named will take the position?
All these individuals have served on, are currently serving on the committee. It is really important that we have a diverse group of people on that board, having Tom Rupp representing the township, having health department individual Jay, and Sarah Nelson and Jim Brown. It's just all a good perspective. We can have heated discussions, as Vivian can back me up on, how to best promote recycling and taking care of our environment. But all these people have the best interests of the county at heart and are valuable members of the committee.
I think some of them have reapplied and resubmitted their information, and then other
They've all
ones
been
have-
asked then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and some have been chosen by their
Yeah,
organizations.
by their peers.
Right, like Jay has been appointed by the health department as the representative, and then Frank Fiala.
Yep.
So, any other,
Jay actually wants to be on it, right, Jay?
any other discussion?
And the same with Patricia, her.
Yep, well, Patricia just got appointed from,
Yeah, the village.
right. We just approved her last week or so. Any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee was to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Patricia Rail to serve in a position representing the village representative, to reappoint Thomas Rook to serve in the position representing the townships, to reappoint Jay Van Stee to serve in the position representing Barry Eaton Health Department, to reappoint Sarah Nelson and Jim Brown to serve general public. The terms are 3 years beginning on November 1st, 2020, expire on October 31st, 2023, and confirm the appointment of Frank Fiala for the year 2021 as recommended by David Solms, Chair of the Road Commission. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? The item is approved. All right. Next on our agenda, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached intergovernmental contract between Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health Regional Entity and the counties of Berry, Berrien, Branch, Calhoun, Cass, Kalamazoo, St. Joe, and Van Buren for the purpose of setting forth the terms and conditions for the establishment of a substance use disorder, SUD, oversight policy board pursuant to MCL 330.1287, paragraph 5, and authorize the board chair to sign.
So moved. Support.
Moved by Geiger, support by Jackson. Michael?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a renewal of an agreement. The contract is between all of these counties and Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health Regional Entity. That entity serves as the entity that the PA $2, the liquor tax dollars go through. So the counties receive those funds from the state of Michigan. We submit them on to the regional entity, who then disperses them to the substance abuse disorder agencies within the counties. We have to enter into this agreement. We're part of the region for this organization, and it's just a renewal.
I can sit on the board, called the SWIMBA board. PA $2 are the dollars that you pay in liquor tax, and the legislature has long used that tax to help people that are suffering from addiction. So this region, the substance use disorder policy board, we determine how to best use those dollars. Yesterday, I was on a call with the providers, and they were making a pitch how they would fund their programs. Some of them were halfway
Vivian?
Do those dollars that come to the county that go to them, does Berry County get
Yes,
the right share? I mean, or do they divide it in a different way?
every one of our, every county has a budget that they submit to SWIMBA.
Okay.
And in Berry County, it's through our mental health board. They submit that budget. And we look at every county's budget. Berry County is funded enough.
Well, I know, but
It
apparently
is fair too.
the alcohol or the, what did you call it? What's
PA2.
PA2 monies that Berry County gets based on their expenditures of
Yeah.
alcohol? And does that all come back to Berry County?
The alcohol tax money goes to Lansing directly.
Mhm.
And then they send it to the region. So we don't, the alcohol tax isn't measured.
By county?
By county.
Oh,
We've only had to make a couple of adjustments in the budget, moving from one county to another on my time. And it was for Calhoun County and Kalamazoo County. They had a lot of heroin that they were dealing with and people needing assistance. So there were some counties that did not spend all of their money and that had stored kind of surpluses. So there was some adjustment there.
Which county is the fiduciary for this? Is it Berrien?
It is Kalamazoo.
Okay.
do you measure recidivism?
Yes.
How's that? Can you-
It depends. It really is very interesting data. I don't think I could summarize it here today, but we do measure the effectiveness of the program.
Okay.
And the longer somebody is around people that are committed to their recovery, the higher chance they are that they're going to stay sober.
Right, thank you.
I think even our community corrections board uses some of the Southwest behavioral resources in placing people with substance abuse stuff too, for counseling. So it is very well used in our communities to make sure that we're getting people the right help.
Yeah, it's
Thanks.
a model for Michigan. We have Western Michigan University that is involved, and they're always coming up with new ways to keep people in recovery and keep them on the straight and narrow. Like they made a pitch a couple years ago about creating a text message program for people in Alcoholics Anonymous that would send them key texts at difficult times during their week. Schedule like when you're driving home from work, get a text on your phone. Hey, keep it up. It's going to be tough.
Not a great
You can't be
time.
driving and reading a text.
Or just finding key moments in their life where they're being triggered.
Right.
And it's a cheap way to, get somebody's mind out of a dangerous spot. So we have a lot of innovative people on that team.
Thanks.
Any
Don't
other
drink and driving or texting.
There you go.
any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached intergovernmental contract between Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health Regional Entity and the counties of Berry, Berrien, Branch, Calhoun, Cass, Kalamazoo, St. Joe, and Van Buren for the purpose of setting forth the terms and conditions for the establishment of a Substance Abuse Disorder SUD Oversight Policy Board pursuant to MCL 330-1287, paragraph 5, and authorizes the board chair to sign. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Next on our agenda, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal in the amount of $144,156.39 from Interphase Interiors Haworth through the State of Michigan My Deal Cooperative Purchasing Program to furnish the front of the court offices, public defender offices, first floor conference room and lower level conference rooms located in the Courts and Law building. Alrighty, that's a little cart before the horsey, but we got
I just follow you.
motion by Geiger, support by Gibson. Discussion.
I guess I would like to say that that sounds like a high number, but the state is going to reimburse us quite a lot on that, and I am sorry to say, I just talked to Michael this morning about it, and I forgot most of it. But it's, I believe it's 100 and some thousand through Friend of the Court and anything that, any of the conference rooms that has to do with a Friend of the Court, that the state reimburses for that furniture because it is portable and movable. Am I right on that, Michael?
Yeah. So you've been presented with a lot of information, and we tried to thin it down as best we could. But when we are dealing with a nearly $150,000 purchase, we didn't want to, for lack of a better term, short you on the information. So what you have are all of the details related to the furnishings that are going to be purchased, and you can see there is a lot of equipment. That being said, we are furnishing a considerable amount of square footage as well, and doing it in such a way that we're moving a office, the Friend of the Court office, that occupies a building of its own right now into a space that's significantly smaller than what they currently occupy. So the key to this was we've chosen not to invest in bricks and mortar, or more precisely drywall and studs in the interior of an office, and in exchange utilize office furniture that is workstation oriented. So you're paying a little bit more, if you may, a premium for that, but it allows us, or is allowing us, to much more efficiently utilize the space in the Courts and Law and move a department of the courts into that building that previously wasn't able to fit there. To John's point, yeah, part of this will be reimbursed through the Friend of the Court Cooperative Reimbursement Program. The furnishing should be reimbursed over an immediate, or either a year or a multiple year term, because they are movable furnishings. The construction expenses related to the building, because they remain with the building, will be reimbursed through cooperative reimbursement over a period of, it might be 30 years. Useful life it is amortized out. So because it's associated with Friend of the Court, there will be considerable reimbursement associated with that. As well, the Public Defender's Office, we were granted $129,000, which will go toward the construction for the project. You have on your desk, there are 3 copies of the preliminary floor plans for the project. So I thought that that might be helpful if anybody isn't aware. John and Vivian have been very closely involved in this at your appointment, but it gives you an opportunity to take a look at. I've circled with a yellow highlighter the spaces that are actually being worked on, where construction will occur, so that you can quickly kind of see what's going on. But it gives you an idea of the spaces that will be affected or touched as we work through this project. So.
Dan?
Yeah, John, do these go to the ceiling, the spaces, the walls, do they go to the ceiling? Are they movable?
They're movable, but they do not go clear to the ceiling.
Okay, so what about HVAC factor in here? Is it it's not a problem?
We were told that it wouldn't be, no.
Okay,
It is not because
because it doesn't go to the ceiling.
it does not go
All
to
right,
the
okay.
ceiling.
Thank you.
There are hush panels on the top, you know, kind of because of their, especially in front of the court, you know, to kind of help with some of the noise when they're talking on phones and stuff. But having pretty much all my career been in a cubicle type building, the actual personal office space is pretty minimal, which at the time that we looked at it, even way before COVID, so you've got your little office space, but then they have some common areas where if you're going to have a project or something where because the cubicles are pretty small, I thought. But then when you look at, they have like a little common area where they can get together, that's going to help even with this current crisis that we're in, because people won't be meeting in these small cubicles. But they do have these common areas where they can meet. So it is the up and coming thing, but that's one of the reasons is the reimbursement factor and the fact that when there's growth, we can add to or change those offices.
So are they basically private, the ones that have to be private? Or not?
The supervisor
Yeah, the supervisor is really the only,
only,
But if they're talking to attorneys and that type of thing,
that's why we have the
conference room.
conference rooms.
and that only go so far up?
No,
So
the
people
conference rooms are doored. They are
Goes
secure.
to the ceiling?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just think that's appropriate to have private rooms.
Michael, what's happening with the furniture in the current front of the court building?
We will look at, to the degree that we can, repurposing that furniture. We'll just have to see once we make that move, if there, where we can repurpose that as appropriate.
If we're reusing some of that, or if they're basically furnishing in front of the court brand new?
We're not reusing the furnishing that is in the front of the court building now, is a completely different style. The current building functions with individual offices. So those are typical desks, if you may, that go in there. They do not have a workstation, panels around
Good.
them.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So it's a completely different style of furnishing, if you may.
And what did you say the reimbursement was potentially going to be on this, 50% or?
On the furnishings, it's 67%.
67%, okay. Okay.
Any other concerns or discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal in the amount of $144,156.39 from Interphase Interiors, Haworth, through the State of Michigan My Deal Cooperative Purchasing Program to furnish the front of the court offices, public defender offices, first floor conference room, and lower level conference rooms located in the Courts and Law building. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Yay! Do we want to take a quick break before we keep going, or we want to get the Thornapple Manor taken care of before the budget hearing? Ben wants a break? Let's take a break. Okay.
If you guys want to keep going.
Alrighty. Next on our agenda, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the adoption of Resolution 20-18, a resolution to acquire and construct capital improvements consisting of the construction of an assisted living complex as an addition to the Thornapple Manor Medical Care Facility and related improvements, and to publish a notice of intent to issue capital improvement bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Geiger, support by Smelker. Discussion.
I'll
Michael?
introduce this real quickly. Yes, this is associated with the medical care facility. Don Haney emailed me this morning and regrets that he can't make it. They had something come up this morning. He was not able to break away, or he would have been here. This particular resolution, and you have two of them today, but this particular resolution begins the process of allowing the county to issue bonds for this project. I'd like to have two individuals from Benzinski and Company. Benzinski and Company is the finance advisor that we work with. They are the folks that help us sell those bonds. Bobby Benzinski is immediately behind me. He's the president of the company. And then Stephen Hayduck. Thank you, Stephen. Hayduck is also with Benzinski and Company. They came this morning. Thought it might be an opportunity maybe for them to talk just a minute about what they do in relation to the project, as well as ask a few questions. Thought it was kind of timely with this project. We also will go out for bonds relating to the Middleville wastewater project, and then if we are successful with a sheriff's department and jail millage, we'll go out for bonds there as well. What you normally see and is most familiar, if you will, it would be a debt schedule. You'll see those from time to time that show the annual debt requirement. They, of course, do that, and that's a critical part of what they do, but there's a whole lot more associated with it. I've also thought maybe they could talk just a little bit about where the market is relating to interest rates and how that compares to some of the estimates that are done. So if you want to approve the resolution first and then have them talk for a minute, or talk now, it's up to you. But what this resolution that's before you initiates the process whereby we begin to advertise that there's a project. The public has the right to a 45-day referendum, meaning if they get enough signatures, they can require that it go to a vote before the project then can move forward. That's typical with bonds. We have not had one that I'm ever aware of go to referendum, but that process does exist, so we will follow all of those legal rules. So, Madam Chair, I entertain whichever you'd like, if you want to adopt the resolution and then have,
No, it's not adopted, it's recommended.
or recommend it.
Yeah. What's your pleasure?
I just soon hear him talk.
Before you vote? All right.
You guys want to pull an extra chair out?
Good morning. I'm Bobby Benzinski. Stephen Hayduck with me. Usually I'm told to shut up if you want to talk. But thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction. It's glad to be back here in Marion County. We've been in the county for many years. We take pride in the fact that we get invited back. The project that you have before you is obviously an addition to Thornapple Manor. As Michael indicated, you have to publish a 45 notice of intent and a quarter-page ad, and I stress quarter-page ad. It's really, you fold the paper in fours, and that's the size that you need. Our role is to assist you, and Stephen worked with Mr. Haney, Michael Brown, and your bond attorney, Michael Myers, to discuss the various financing options, and we recommended that you issue bonds under Act 34 of 2001, which is known as the Revised Municipal Finance Act. Now, you will advertise this. We will wait for construction bids to come in, size the project in terms of size the bond issue, make sure that
Sir?
construction cost.
Would you pull the mic over to you so the people in the back?
I'm sorry. I'm usually
There you go.
got a loud voice too, but sorry about that. We will size the bond issue based upon the construction cost, the bids that you receive, making sure that we include all of the cost to finance, all of the furniture and fixtures that are required, any other type of equipment that is required for this type of facility, and then recommend a bond issue of either 10, 15, or 20 years. I know that there's been a great deal of discussion there. There's not a definite answer there. You have the ability in this resolution to issue bonds up to 20 years. And that decision is 30, I'm sorry, has not been determined yet. Once we have that, we will prepare what they call the official statement, or the prospectus, which is the major marketing tool that investors look at to make a decision whether or not they want to buy your bonds. It explains the bonds. It explains the demographics of the county. It is used as a marketing tool. It is very important that that information in there is accurate. So we will have due diligence meetings or calls with county officials. We will also assist the county officials in securing the bond rating. Based upon market conditions as they exist today, and Stephen will talk about rates, but we are recommending a competitive bid bond sale, which means that on a certain date and a certain time, investors will submit their bids, and then we will evaluate them to determine the lowest interest cost to the county and make a recommendation to accept or reject the lowest bid that is received based upon current market conditions. After that, we will assist the attorneys in preparing the closing documents. We will prepare some closing documents, and then about 3 weeks after the bond sale, you will receive the proceeds. We will make sure that delivered to the because you're starting to pay interest from the time you receive the money. After that, remain around, and if you have any questions, we're always available. You know that the drain office that we've done a lot of work for at DPW, as bond issues progress, we've always been there to answer the calls and don't get charged. Our fee is part of the bond issue, and it's included as it is the other cost, such as your bond attorney, printing of the prospectus, the rating fee, publication of the notice of intent, and the state of Michigan also has fees that they get paid. So that's basically our role. That's how the process will work. You know, we do recommend that you have construction bids. So once you get the construction bids, that's really when the time clock will start, and we will probably have the project completed, or the financing completed, excuse me, within about 45 to 60 days from the receipt of construction bids.
Questions? Mr. Geiger?
Thank you for your presentation. We're proud to work with your company. We have a long history together. But we're also proud of our bond rating. We worked really hard to make good decisions that are going to keep costs low. That's just a rating to us, but you guys work every day with these bond ratings and with the investors outside of Berry County. Can you tell us what our strengths are in Berry County, what our bond rating is, and what we're doing right?
Well, your bond rating, 30% of it is based upon your economy and the surrounding areas, something that you have very little control of. Right now, we're seeing ratings be affected by COVID, high unemployment rate, as we all know, concern of what costs are related to the entity due to COVID. Obviously, in Berry County, we do follow it. We look at what's going on. Your numbers are very low compared to the statewide averages. So those numbers. You are rated very well because you are very conservative. You are very financially sound. Your audits are prepared timely. Your budgets are prepared and adopted as a balanced budget. Those are your strengths. You have good liquidity. You have good reserves. You have fund balance policies. You have good policies in place. You function very well. your projects, you do not have a lot of debt for a county as itself. I mean, your debt burden is fairly low. So, those are all your good factors. And really, because the economy is what it is, you're in the state of Michigan, you're really not affected that much. If you were in an area that was much poorer and much more higher unemployment, then that could affect your rating, but right now it's not.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 20-18, a resolution to acquire and construct capital improvements consisting of the construction of an assisted living complex as an addition to the Thornapple Manor Medical Care Facility and related improvements, and to publish notice of intent to issue capital improvement bonds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved.
We were going to give you a market update.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
talk
I'm
about
good with that.
rates a little bit. So,
Please talk into the mic so that we...
I'm sorry.
Everybody
I'm
can
thinking
hear
it's
you.
picking me up. Rates now are essentially at an all-time low. I'll speak for Bobby here, who's been doing this for 43 years. I don't think he's ever seen rates as low as they are today. We had a 15-year transaction sell 2 weeks ago, or 20-year transaction. It was $15 million. Sold 2 weeks ago at 1.77%, and that was AA rated, which is the same rating as Berry County is. And then I have a couple comparable transactions here as well. I mean, Ingham County did a $69 million bond issue last week. They're AA rated as well. It was about 20 years, and they were at 1.84%. So even with all the uncertainty going on, I mean, it still is a good time to borrow with rates being this low. I think when Michael first started looking at this project, he was budgeting 4% for the interest rate. So it would be right now considerably under 2%. The schedules I provided him were for 2.5% to 3%, depending on the term. So we're still looking at this conservatively, but and then with the election coming up, you never know what will happen. But I think rates will stay low for a while. I don't see them going up anytime soon. But
Any questions for our guests?
news.
I like good news.
For borrowing.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of good news in 2020.
yeah.
So,
We should borrow money for under 2%.
but when we look at, if you look at the paragraph on the last resolution that we passed, it says our state equalization valuation of $3.2 billion. Our debt limit for like issuing bonds is $160 million. We're only looking at $10 million, not even a tenth.
We can change that.
No, that's okay. I mean, but we have some relatively big projects that we're looking at borrowing for, and at $160 million, I mean, we have room. Not that, incurring debt is always a good thing, but we have some big things that need to be taken care of, and we have room to do that at a very nice interest rate. I wish that, like, my balloon mortgage could work this way, and I didn't have to balloon it again. So, all right, the next thing on our agenda, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 20-19, a resolution to approve and authorize execution of contracts for the design and management of construction of the assisted living complex as an addition to the Thornapple Manor Medical Care Facility.
So moved.
Who moved that? Parker? Moved by Parker, support by Geiger. Discussion. Michael?
Thank you. This resolution is a bit, if you may, administrative in that Thornapple Manor, in their planning process, entered into some initial contracts with an architect and a construction manager. And now that the project is at a point that it's moving to the construction phase, this takes those contracts and moves them into the county. It will ultimately be the county's project, but on behalf of Thornapple Manor. Thornapple Manor will oversee, manage, etc. the project, but the contracts, just like the bonding, will be with the county. So what this does is allows all of the work that has been put into the project thus far to continue on. And I spoke of a term, construction manager. I think everybody's familiar with an architect, if you may, in a project. But beyond that, once you get to the construction, there are a couple options with regard to constructing a project. You can do a general contractor project where you put one bid out for the entire project and enter into a contract with a general contractor. The general contractor then has the risk, if you may, associated with that project. The downside to going to that type of a situation is that you only have the ability to decide on one entity, and that's the general contractor. They then enter into all of the contracts for the subs and choose the subs in the project, as well if there are changes that come along during the project, change orders, those usually end up with additional costs associated with them and fees. In contrast, the general construction manager, you enter into an agreement with the construction manager, who then serves, if you may, in that general contractor situation on the owner's behalf, and that entity in this situation, CM Contracting, would negotiate on your behalf and bid out all of the trades associated with the project. It gives the owner more control, if you may, over the entire project, and allows the trades, if you may, to be individually bid out and worked through. Likewise, if there are changes, there of course are costs associated with that if you're asking somebody to do more work, but they don't come with a general contractor markup that exists with the general contractor. So we've used both, most recently the construction manager project or style. Thornapple Manor, both the renovation and the cottages projects were completed through a construction manager, and both CM Contracting as the construction manager and Eckert Wardell as the architect were the agencies or entities of record for the projects.
Questions?
Now, I guess I'm not real clear. Are we saying which one we want here?
In this case, this resolution is establishing a construction manager relationship, and that's the recommendation.
That's recommended by Thornapple Manor?
That is correct. I'm not suggesting that we go with a general contractor. I was just, I guess for education purposes, explaining a little bit of the difference.
Uh-huh. And that's what Thornapple wanted, because once this project gets started, Thornapple Manor is the one that really has control over it, right?
That's correct. And we really want them to. They're the experts in construction.
Well, you know.
Any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 20-19, a resolution to approve and authorize execution of contracts for the design and management of construction of the assisted living complex as an addition to the Thornapple Manor Medical Care Facility. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Now do we need to take a little break before we do the budget hearing? Great.
I mean the workshop.
Yeah, that thing. Budget workshop. The next thing on the agenda.
I can't hear with all. Yes, Monday night is the
Testing.
Republican meeting. It's at the park in Delta.
There you go.
Between the funeral home.
Meetings Act, Public 267 of 1976, MCL 15.268, Section 8D, to consider the purchase or lease of real property up to the time an option to purchase or lease that real property is obtained.
It's
This will
been
be a
moved
5-minute meeting.
It's been moved and seconded to go into closed section pursuant to MCL, what was the number?
MCL, it's 8D, Section 8D.
We'll correct that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Yes, sir.
You can go use that room back there.
Okay, thank you, sir. The clerk will call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Ben,
Um,
couldn't we have Jay talk
we are
about
adjourned
Triple E
for
and then go into
closed session.
He's got to go to school.
Oh.
Give him 5 minutes now.
They have a conference hall down the hall? Yeah, they have a conference.
Yeah.
I think the clock is fast.
Aaron, did you make coffee while we were gone? That'll be reflected in your tip.
The committee will come to order. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session.
Second.
Moved by Gibson, support by Connor. The clerk will call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. The minutes of the closed session are approved. Before we go into the budget workshop,
Do we need to approve the consensus of the board, or approve the action discussed in closed session?
Michael, do we need to approve what was discussed in the closed session or just approve the minutes?
There wasn't a motion made or anything.
Thank you, sir. Jay, before we go on to our budget workshop, I'd like to hear from the health department. They missed my public comment earlier, and I think the information he has for us is pretty important today, and we can let him get back to work. I guess this is Jay Van Steen from the Barry Eaton District Health Department. He has some information about Eastern equine encephalitis and COVID updates.
Actually, the COVID updates...
Can you please speak into the mic, please?
Sorry. Yes. The COVID updates were going to be given by Colette and Jen. They had to leave for a previous engagement. I'm not prepared
Thank
to talk
you.
about that, but I would like to give you an update on the Triple E situation. I'm sure we all remember where we were at last year, this time with Triple E, and it seems like a lot longer than a year. But the truth of the matter is we are actually ahead of where we were last year in terms of the number of horses that have been identified with this disease. That's the primary way that we're alerted to the disease in our area, is when the horses start contracting it. To date, I just looked this morning and they indicated that we don't have any human cases. I'll tell you, last week we were told that we thought we had a presumptive human case in Barry County. That hasn't been confirmed yet, so I'm not sure if they're just still waiting on test results or if they ruled that out. I expected to have that, to know that by now, but I'm not entirely certain on that. So the state has decided they're going to go through with aerial spraying. Again this year, they've scheduled that. At least a first round is going to happen tomorrow. There is one area, again, on the one horse that's been identified in Barry County, was in the Dowling area, that is on their grid to be sprayed. Again, they've identified that their plans are to start tomorrow evening, weather permitting, and it looks at this point like they're probably going to have good weather. So I would expect that to happen. It's my understanding is a 5 square mile around the radius of any human or animal cases, and as I said, we have that one animal case near Dowling. I guess I would just say that at this point we are ahead of where we were last year. So we're anticipating this is going to get worse. Last year was the worst record we've ever seen. We had more cases last year than we'd seen in the previous 10 years. And so obviously, we're discussing, is that going to be a repaid? Is that a one-offer? And it seems, I wouldn't say clear, but it seems pretty clear that we're going to have a bad year again. The weather conditions are favorable for it. There's 2 different mosquitoes that interact to spread this. The disease is spread, honestly, it's spread endemically in swamps, actually a fairly specific type of a swamp. and it's spread among the birds in the swamp by an endemic mosquito that typically only lives in those swamps. Later in the year, there are other mosquitoes that come into play, and they actually bite the birds and can get the virus, become infected, if you will, from the birds. But they also then are mammal biters as well. They're omnivorous, if you will. And so that's where the spread comes out, and they also have a little bit of more of a flying ability. They're more of a flight mosquito, and so that's where that 5-mile radius comes from. So I would take any questions at this point.
You got anything for Jay, David?
So the truth of the matter is, it's a little bit of a misnomer. They publish, you'll read that a third of cases result in death, and that's really a little bit misleading because most people that get triple E won't even know it or have very mild symptoms. It's only the people who actually develop this severe disease, and my understanding is that's less than 2 or 3% of the population who actually come into contact with it, but a significant portion of them, approximately a third of the people who actually get sick enough to know they're sick, are facing some pretty severe consequences, death, and if they do recover, quite often they have long-term neurological symptoms that they're battling the rest of their life. So it is a serious disease. It's something that we're concerned about. It's obviously, in light of the whole COVID thing, it's, we've got just one more thing, and we're aware of that there's a certain amount of, public, we get, overwhelmed over time, and so we're trying to put the messaging out that, the best course of action is wear DEET or other EPA-approved insect repellents, wear those liberally, and, limit your activities dusk and dawn and at night after dark. That's when these mosquitoes are most active, is after dark and at dusk, and that's when the aerial spraying, for the record, that all happens after dark, when there really is very minimal chance of any exposure. And the truth is, again, the material they've used is a Maris 3.0. It's an organic pesticide at extremely low concentrations when they deliver it aerially, and there's, to my knowledge, never been a case of any human problems with this. So I
Is
don't
that that
anticipate.
permethrin
I'm sorry?
based? Is that that chrysanthemum based?
It is the same product they used last year,
Okay.
derived from chrysanthemums.
You can
I
get it down
recommend
at Tractor Supply. You can spray it directly on an animal. It's used in the animal industry all over the place. You can even put it up in your milk house in an automatic sprayer and have it spray and not contaminate your milk.
It's obviously deadly to insects. It's not harmful to humans or mammals.
Let's bring,
At this point, it's, like I said, about a 5-mile square area around the known horse case, and that's in the Delton area. That's about the best I can tell you. I will say, anecdotally, that over the last week, of course, as this is hitting the news, we're getting calls from people that are saying, I know of this dead horse, or my neighbor had a dead horse. And of course, horses die of all kinds of things, and quite often, if we have time to follow up on those, by the time we get to them, the horse is already buried. And so we don't really know for sure, but there is certainly enough suspicion out there that it's almost certainly is more widespread than we're aware of. It's we're seeing more of it. I think there's upwards of 17 cases last I heard of horse cases across the state, and we do have some significant areas of Berry County that are classified as this particular ecosystem, this swamp type habitat. It's a bog habitat. Blackman Swamp has been referenced as over by Delton as one that's a good representation of the type of habitat where these mosquitoes live.
And our high and standing water areas do not
Year-round
slow
standing
things
water
down.
areas, yes, that's where they like to hang out. And so I don't know what the state will elect to do going forward, but I'm going to anticipate that we're going to see more cases of this and probably future additional flyovers with additional cases as they develop.
so if, go ahead.
At first you said Dowling, and then you referred to Delton. Are they?
Okay, Dowling is the area.
Where they're spraying.
It's just where we have a confirmed case.
Okay.
It's just west, or east and north of Dowling, as I recall.
Okay.
On a Amish farm. I referenced the Blackman Swamp over by Delton.
Okay.
That's one of the areas that I happen to know is a endemic area.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove past the area, frankly, that is in the, right by Dowling, where this apparently a confirmed horse, and it's a very similar type of habitat. You wouldn't know the difference really.
And there's a lot of our not Amish neighbors that live between the two places, all the way to Nashville, Vermontville. So that's a nice swath across
Yes.
our counties.
Absolutely. One thing I've heard a few questions about, and I guess I'll just make it clear, you cannot get this from an animal. You can't get it from a horse. You can't get it from a deer, or you can't even get it from another person. You can only get it from a mosquito bite, and you can't get it from a mosquito. A mosquito can't become infected from biting a horse. Mosquitoes can only become infected themselves from the birds because they have such a high viral load in their system. So that does limit it to a degree, and that's why, in the past they've targeted their spraying around these endemic areas.
But just to reemphasize, we are not blanket spraying Berry County. We are not blanket spraying the state. We are spraying identified areas where this mosquito has, and
Well, we
the
have a
horse,
known-
where the known cases are within a 5-mile radius to try to eradicate the mosquitoes that are causing the problem.
Now,
So there's
spraying at night,
Okay.
that will be minimal hazard to our bee population. right?
Absolutely, no question about it. The bees are, by and large, by 8 o'clock, they're all in the hive, and again, it's not to say that it's not hazardous to bees. It is, at proper concentrations. But again, at the concentration they're spraying, it is so low. It's about an ounce, if you can think a shot, over an entire football field, and it's aerosolized, tiny, tiny little droplets, head of the pin type thing. So it's so diffuse. You would be hard pressed to even know it if you were standing under it, and likely is not going to affect bees.
Well, our honeydew population and beekeepers have really been hurting for many, many years.
No doubt it.
Not to put words in John's mouth, but any type of adverse effect in these populations.
Totally understand that.
Yeah.
When we're aware of that, and we anticipate we're probably going to get some calls and concerns about it, but we do believe the risk is relatively low. There are provisions that beekeepers themselves can take if they're concerned about it. They can cover their hives up with burlap, and I would direct anyone with questions. The best resources, the MDHHS EE site. I don't have that address offhand, but if you just Googled MDHHS EE, it'd be their first result.
Do we want to notify our beekeepers?
I'm sure they're aware. The press has been
I
covering
would-
this
I
for the
would
last
be
couple days.
I would be surprised if they're not. We have had some talk internally about
This has
reaching
been on
out to our
WBCH.
Amish communities again, because we know they don't do TV and radio and the internet, so to speak. So we're looking at a process to do that and reach out to them and do some outreach.
Oh, the news travels fast in that community, a whole lot faster than we think.
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing.
It buzzes fast.
Oh, I thought you
thank you,
said
sir.
buggy.
One question: do any of the human symptoms of EEE, mimic the symptoms of COVID?
No, not to my knowledge. They're very different. The symptoms of EEE.
The massive headache.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They're not the cold respiratory
Okay.
disease type symptoms at all.
And I'm sorry that we didn't recognize Colette and what's her Jennifer this morning. I didn't even notice that they were here. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying, Jay.
Sure, no problem. Absolutely.
All right, let's do this budget workshop. Get her done.
I gotta go.
I only know of one or two.
You have more of an agronomy-based population than the west side of the county. Alrighty, how do we begin, Michael?
The Let's start with the budget that you've been presented is balanced, and it's in the format that hopefully you're familiar with, seeing both budget-wise and then our budget amendments. I can go through this in as much detail as you would like. I don't want to gloss over anything, but I do know that it's been a busy morning, so Heather, I guess I would turn it to you for just a minute and see how, what detail you'd like me to go through.
I have
Yes, sir.
2021 proposed capital budget. You have proposed replacing the parking lot, property room relocation expansion, installing security screens, replacing HVAC, replacing porcelain sinks, and installing a partition for large inmate multi-purpose rooms at a total of $278,500. I propose we cut that to zero until a millage has been passed. We cannot, I mean, dumping $278,000 into a money pit that we're gonna ask the voters to tear down is not wise. I understand that Michael has a job to do. He's gotta, make recommendations based on current needs, but this is an example of how much this jail is costing us, and I think our voters would be appalled if we spent this money for giving them a chance to vote.
That's about 10, is that 1% of what we're asking for in a millage, 25 mil?
Well, that don't include the $500,000 for a roof then.
Yeah, that's,
It's $278,000, which is a lot.
But even if the millage passes, I mean, we're not gonna get a new jail right away.
no, it'll be at least 2 years
It'll
before.
be 2 years, and you still got lots of issues with that parking lot. I mean, I'm not, that's,
Parking lot doesn't affect public safety.
And this isn't new money, this is fund balance money or money that's already set aside, correct?
I don't know how we can tell the voters that, it's a money pit, we're being good with your money, but we're gonna spend all of this money on fixing up the building that we might be tearing down.
And I don't think that we would be spending that money. It's a representation at this point of what has been identified, at least by the Sheriff's Department, of what needs to be done for that facility. Some of these items have carried over multiple years in anticipation of the millage that's on the November ballot going forward. So you certainly can zero those out. We,
The only
for
one
example,
I might be open to changing my mind on is replace the porcelain sinks, toilet and urinal and blessed unit, because you can use those things as weapons.
Yeah.
again, these have carried over in many instances, and it really is as much a reflection of items that need to be done. If the millage did not pass,
Then you come back and ask.
then we'd come look at these. If it does, we're certainly not gonna
And if some of these
spend the
come up,
funds on that.
that, you know, if the HVAC goes down entirely and stuff, it's gotta be fixed.
Yeah, then they
Yeah.
come here and ask.
Then they come and ask, yes. But
So,
this
okay.
preventive stuff, I agree with you on that, so.
Is there anything else that, you said something about the roof, John?
Well, they were talking at one time that the roof cannot be recoated or anything. It's so heavy, and it's starting to leak, that it has to be completely tore off and redone we have to. and that's a $500,000 project, from what I understand. But that's not on here.
Sir?
Without knowing what's underneath.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the structure, all the beams, and the slope, and everything on up, and the insulation and all that, but so it's without all that information.
That was an educated guess of $500,000.
Okay. Good professional guess.
Yeah.
Michael, was there any major changes in the budget or anything that stood out? That you direct?
No, so the budget, as in the past, it begins with looking at what we have done in 2020, those staffing levels that we have, excuse me, and then building upon that based on 2021 fringe benefit costs. New positions were pulled out of this budget. I'll go through that in a minute. But that's the foundation and basis for the budget. Appropriations were established at previous year's levels, so 2020 levels, unless there was some contract in place that required that it be increased. You've dealt with the couple of appeals that exist. So walking through on page 12 of the General Appropriations Act, I think what's critical is that the millages that are proposed to be levied are the maximum allowable, which is common, except for Central Dispatch. They are only proposing to levy 0.85 mil, where their maximum allowable is a little over 0.9. It's not 1 anymore because it's been reduced by Headley. The medical care facility debt is set at 0.6795.
So as our land evaluation goes up, that they're crushing their debt a little faster all the time?
No, we pay the debt payment. We only levy on an annual basis what's required to pay that year's debt levy or debt payment. What ends up happening, however, is as our taxable value goes up, the millage levy potentially goes down. Now, built into this is built into the entire debt schedule was an assumption that our millage or our taxable value would rise at a certain level.
Okay.
So as long as the increase is going up more than what the assumption was in the debt schedule, then the millage levy would go down. The remainder of the budget resolution is pretty much boilerplate. On page 15, the budget summary for the general fund. Again, the 2021 recommendation is balanced at $18,522,947. That is less than what was requested at $19,297,000. Revenues are pretty standard. I'm not aware of anything at this point that jumps out as a significant change. We will be continuing to watch state revenues as the state is challenged from what we can see going into 2021 and 2022. I did hear on the radio as I was coming in this morning that the legislature and the governor have a tentative budget deal. I don't know exactly what that means, how close that is. They were commenting it's ahead of the schedule, and that the two areas that were not harmed reaffirmed, if you may, were K-12 education. There are no cuts being proposed there, as well as revenue sharing. So revenue sharing is the area that we would be keeping an eye on. At this point, it does not look like what was. Okay. So that's good news for us, an area that we'd watch. So we have budgeted, at this budget includes revenue sharing based on the schedule that we were previously provided. But of course that was pre-COVID, and so that's good news. Revenue or expenditures. We did pull out a number of new positions. I'll get to those shortly. Again, I talked just for a minute. I think it was maybe Dave that asked the question about are there any differences? Again, it's based on that base budget, and then built with adjustments to fringe benefits according to 2021's rates. Contingency was established at $63,440 on page 23. Based on the changes that you proposed today, I think Luella told me that dropped it to $38,000. So if both requests are approved, contingency would become roughly $34,000. We walked on page 24 through the capital budget. At least Commissioner Geiger talked about that.
I do have one other thing to discuss with the board, and I wouldn't bring this up, except it's a timely issue. We've, for the last 10 years, needed to replace the video equipment in the mezzanine. When somebody comes up to do a PowerPoint presentation, we don't have it's just not set up for it. So, I would really like to do a audio-video overhaul of that room and do it right. Instead of the projectors, we have screens.
If we do anything up there, anything you do could be moved to another room?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know it would be nice to work on it when the commissioners aren't up there.
Yeah, well,
I think you could.
I personally,
If you,
You never
use
know
big
what-
monitors and HDMI cables to a central location, that all that stuff is removable.
because you never know, commissioners might be in the old FOC building.
We could move it. We could move any audio visual.
That's pretty much, can you?
The only thing we'd have to leave are wires.
You're on the
right?
spot.
Yeah, but we need a way for people giving presentations to quickly and efficiently make that happen without relying on administrative staff. And I know that's a heavy lift to hardwire something in there, but
left in the contingency for this year, 20?
Wouldn't that come out of,
Data process.
capital budget stuff?
On
Yeah.
IT, you mean?
Take
Yeah.
out data processing for now.
Okay,
But I think the answer to your question is we have 69,000.
that's what I thought too.
Minus the 50 for, frontline workers. So, 19.
Seems more like it should be a vendor request item that we can discuss, put an RFP out there, and Aaron can back us some ideas for it first, discuss it first.
I agree.
Well, the reason I bring it up, Dave, is because you could gut that room without the 4 feet.
You got the room.
It's pretty bare bones now. I mean, all the rafters and stuff are all visible. I mean, we could get,
I'd like to see 10,000 foot the budget for it.
that's a lot of money for that upgrade. I don't think it would, I mean, unless you buy all new server stuff.
5? Maybe he's right. We
I
just
like
take out
Dave's idea.
contingency this year.
I like Dave's idea to get an RFP and have it be a separate,
I agree with that. David.
it is.
I'm not opposed to the idea, but I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
something that Aaron needs some time to do some research and see where technology's going. Take a look at that room.
Is kind of putting him on the spot.
Speaking of technology, I still would like to say that because we're not meeting in chambers and we're not in the courthouse that much, we really need a data plan on our tablets.
Yeah,
Because you're sitting here and nothing, not getting
I
any
think
emails,
having-
nothing.
a tablet with a modem in it instead of having to hook up to Wi-Fi. Yeah,
Mine's working.
they're,
Finally.
right.
Do we need a motion for the budget?
I don't know if you want to add that to the commissioner's
Yeah.
budget,
We
but
maybe need to have that be a agenda request and work on that separately. Right. That's an ongoing cost and we would have
right,
to
I
budget in.
understand that. A month?
Do we need a
Alrighty.
motion for the budget?
Do we need a motion to approve the budget stuff,
We
Michael?
do. I just want to, I'd like to run over, or through the staffing requests,
Okay,
pages 25 and 26. There were a number of requests, and there were actually a number that were recommended. They were recommended if funds were available through a grant or otherwise. So the jail recommended 2 corrections officers' positions being upgraded to sergeants. They were able to accomplish that through funds that they have on hand, so that's being recommended. By transferring those funds from temporary salaries into their permanent. An assistant public defender funding is coming through the state grant, as well as a corrections officer assigned to the public defender's office. So those 2 are included in the state grant. A pretrial worker in the trial court, funding is coming through the OCC grant. A part-time CPL file clerk in the clerk's office. That funding is available in the CPL fund. I guess that is it. The remainder of those don't have funding associated with them, so they were not recommended.
Madam Chair, I forgot to make an official motion, enough for the board to consider an amendment. Move to amend the proposed budget to have change the jail capital replacement from 278,500 to 0.
is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Geiger, second by Smelker to reduce the capital budget for the jail work to 0. Is there discussion?
They can come back when there's an emergent need.
If there's an urgent need, but there won't be anything in contingency unless that 270-some thousand is moved to contingency. How do you do that?
Can I ask a question? Ben, so you want us to come back at the basis?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure I understood. I'm not that rude.
Any other discussion?
John has a good point.
Yeah, exactly. But we're reducing the contingency down to 34 now. I mean, what are we gonna have to work with
Yeah.
if,
Right.
if
Where
people
will
come
this
back?
270 go, Michael?
Well, that's a capital, that's in the building rehabilitation
Coming out of building
fund.
rehab, so it
So
will
it'll
remain,
still come out of
it will
building
remain
rehab.
in building rehabilitation.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Question before the committee is to reduce, whatever I said before. The proposed, building rehab, projects for the jail to 0. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. All right. What's the next step?
Motion to
Motion to approve the.
budget as written or amended?
Move to recommend the approval of the budget as amended to the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, so if you're at that spot, we will schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
That public hearing will be set for our second Board of Commissioners meeting in October. I believe that's maybe the 27th.
Those will be decided on next week, won't they?
Yeah, so next week we'll get Tim Vandermark. We'll schedule him to be here next week.
Okay.
And then based on, once you hear the appeals and make those final decisions, at that point, we
So-
will update the budget document to include those changes and the changes today, and then we will get that at a public hearing advertised and the budget distributed for public inspection.
So there's no action on this needed at this time?
I guess not at this point.
Alrighty. Thank you, sir. At this time, it's limited public comment. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're going with on this, with that,
Kidding.
taking it down to 0 and as need. I can't disagree with you on that. I think we'd have a hard time pitching that to the public myself, so. We will, I'll try and get that broke down to what's critical right now, because in the parking lot, we got some holes, we call them ankle biters, and we'll find some ways to patch that. Our luck with the patching, you can get the patch rate at the Berry County Lumber, but what happens is usually in a couple of years, after the water seeps in and it freezes and all that, the hole starts back up again. But, all right, I understand with you. Thanks for working with us on that, and we'll get cooperation from my office, no problem. So, thank you.
Thank
Art.
you, sir. Is there any other limited public comment? Hearing none, is there any other business to come before the committee? There being no further business and without objection, the committee is adjourned.